In the past, road cycling was a sport where it's quite difficult to quantify changes in fitness unless you were simply comparing yourself to your peers in training or racing. It's not like athletics or swimming where you're generally doing set distances under the same conditions. However, that all changed with the invention of power meters. We are now able to quantify changes of fitness over time out on the road without needing to go into a specific sports science laboratory. They are starting to come down in price, but they are a luxury item still relatively expensive. But if you're lucky enough to own one, here is GCN's basic guide on how to get started with a power meter. Today I'm lucky enough to be using a pair of the brand new Garmin Vector pedals which have just come on the market. They're of similar accuracy to the other power meters that are on the market at the moment, likes of SRM, PowerTap or Quarq. And I've got a Garmin 810 head unit which is going to record all of the data which we get from today's ride. I'm going to do 4 tests today. Normally you do these tests over 2 separate days because if you do them all properly, they're too hard to do on one training ride. But the first thing I'm going to do is a sprint test, a couple of 10-second efforts to find out what my maximum power is. Think of the likes of Mark Cavendish when he goes towards the line in the last 200 meters. The next test is a 1-minute climb. Again, the sort of effort that somebody might make on a short, sharp climb towards the end of a stage, or perhaps a kilometre sprinter on the track. Next, we're going to do a VO2 max test of around about 5 minutes, which is the sort of effort that an individual pursuiter might make on the track, or somebody like Philippe Gilbert on one of the climbs in the Ardennes Classics. And finally, we're going to do a threshold test. It's going to be 20 minutes long, one of the hardest things that you can do. And think of the likes of Chris Froome on the climbs, or Tony Martin in a time trial. The first test that we're going to do is the sprint test. Now, I normally try and do 3 of these for a test. That way, on one of them, I'm going to find out that I've got an absolute maximum out of myself. And the aim of this test is to find out what our maximum 5-second power is. In terms of where you want to do it, well, I tend to find that at the end of a downhill is good. If you find a downhill which runs off onto the flat, you get some good speed up, 30 miles per hour, 50 k's per hour plus. That way you'll have to put out your maximum power just to keep that speed going. If you do it from a slower start, and after 2 or 3 seconds, you're going to find that you spin the gear out and you'll need to change up, and that will affect your peak 5-second value. So let's go and do a couple now. Okay, next up we're going to do the 1-minute test. Now for this one you want to find a climb which is of course going to take at least 60 seconds from the bottom to where you finish, but also that's on a steady gradient so you're not having to change gears and lose power on the way up. Like the sprint, there's no need to pace this one. You just want to get an explosive start and keep going as hard as possible until that's 60 seconds up. And also like the sprint, there's no need to watch your power meter on the way up. You just want to make sure that you've got everything out of yourself by the time that time is up. I think I can safely say that I got everything out of myself, and you want to get that one right first time because it's not something that you want to repeat twice on the same ride. Okay, now we're ready to start the 5-minute test. Now, like the 1-minute one, if you've got a climb of 5 minutes in duration on a steady gradient, that would be absolutely perfect. But if you haven't, do it on a straight, flat road without any junctions and not too much traffic. Now, unlike the first 2 tests, this one does need to be paced. If you start off too hard in that first 30 seconds or 1 minute, you're really going to pay for it over the second half. If you've got no idea what power you're going to average, then I would suggest that at the end of the first minute, you should be feeling uncomfortable, but by no means near your limit. That way, after 2 minutes or so, your brain will have caught up with what your body's been doing, and then you can feel free to go absolute maximum from that point on. That was equally as excruciating as the 1-minute one. But if you pace things well over that last minute of the 5-minute test, you should be able to do roughly the same power that you've been doing for the first half of it. But as I said, it will be excruciating. Okay, last test of the day, and it's the 20-minute one, which we're going to use to calculate our FTP, functional threshold power, which is defined as the maximum that somebody can do for 60 minutes in duration. We're going to take the result from the 20-minute test, take 5% off, and that's going to give us a great indication. Now again, if you've got a 20-minute climb, that's absolutely perfect. If you haven't, try and find a row with a minimal number of junctions, no traffic lights, no downhills preferably, so that you can get that power down consistently for the entire duration of the test. Now this is the one where it's most important to pace yourself. If you're on your limit after 2 or even 4 minutes, then you're going to start dying and you've got a long time with which to suffer. So ideally after 5 minutes it should be feeling hard but not too uncomfortable. Then once you get over the halfway point of 10 minutes, that's when it should start to feel really difficult. I've forgotten how hard those were. But that's exactly why when you do these tests, especially the longer ones, you need to be really fresh and motivated just to be able to get everything out of yourself. I'll see you in a minute. Well, with all of the tests completed, I feel suitably shattered, but as I said at the start of the video, it's best not to do them all on the same day because you won't get the maximum out of yourself. I would suggest doing the sprint and the 5-minute test on one day, then on a separate day doing the 1-minute and 20-minute test, giving yourself adequate recovery between each. But once you've got those test results, well, what do you do with them? Well, I'm afraid that's a huge subject which we will get around to covering in future videos, but in the meantime there is a lot of information out there on the internet and also in books. Really, you just need to be logical. If you're a sprinter, you might want to concentrate on doing the shorter efforts, but bear in mind that in order to use your sprint at the end of the race, you're going to have an adequately high functional threshold power. Likewise, if you're a time trialist or somebody who focuses on sporties with long mountains, a sprint's not really going to do too much for you, so you might want to concentrate more on raising your functional threshold power. Whatever your goals though, if you do these tests, one or all of them regularly, every 6 to 8 weeks, you'll make sure that everything's going in the right direction.
If you can, try to time your effort on the front of the group to when you're riding uphill. Now because I'm going a lot slower, I'm wasting a lot less energy by battling into a wind. Now also the guys behind